Chapter 13. Li Shuyan's expression was calm, but his breathing was unstable. His hands, hidden in his sleeves, were clenched, and his heart pounded loudly. He was suffering on the inside. Gao Min's breathing stopped for a moment. Then he shouted, "The emperor has no need to bend over for their concubine father. Just kill these traitors." Zhu Sheng's fingers tightened, causing Gao Min's cheeks to redden, forehead veins to bulge, and speech to stop. Li Juyan looked at him, then closed his eyes. It looked like he couldn't bear to see, but his arms slightly raised, ordering the guards to ignore and slaughter. In such a big event that decided his future, he should know the right choice. When he ascended the throne, he will certainly cut Xu Shujie and Six Prince with 1,000 cuts until their grey bones were exposed, in revenge for his father. The surrounding crowd were frightened until their souls flew out, except for Zhu Yunsheng, who was laughing. He raised his hand and shook his sleeves at the nearby soldiers. The swords in their hands folded into a few pieces and fell to the ground. What kind of martial arts is this? He can use the airflow as an invisible weapon. How appalling! If even the steel swords fold like paper, then what would happen to flesh and blood? The soldiers felt their chests tighten. They were too afraid to move. Everyone was stunned into a trance. Zhu Yunsheng was still laughing. He pulled a jade hairpin out from Gao Min's hair and casually threw it. "You want to kill me with so little people? Li Shuyan, you're too naive. Believe it or not, even if there was a mighty army in front of you, it'd still be easy for me to kill you." His movements were simple, but they hit a powerful force. When a soldier saw the hairpin flying out, he quickly brandished his sword to block Li Juyan, but all he heard was a crisp snap, and a small hole appeared in the blade. But the momentum of the hairpin had not diminished. It scratched the side of Li Shuyan's face and buried itself deep into a post. Although all that was visible of the hairpin was the crimson gem that was embedded on the end. How much strength should be used to turn a fragile and brittle jade hairpin into a weapon harder than steel? If he was really trying to take Fifth Prince's life, Fifth Prince would have already died 100 times. Forget about Li Shuyan's soldiers. Even the people hiding behind Zhu Yunsheng felt their legs weaken. No one expected the weak-seeming Shishu Jia had supernatural and unpredictable martial arts. If he wanted to kill anyone, even Dalu Xinxian couldn't save them. But he lived deep in the palace and did not ask for the world. No one knew if he was really indifferent to fame and fortune or secretly plotting. He's hidden too deeply. It's unfathomable. Everyone gaped in horror. Now things had developed to this point in time. How much of it was Shishujiu's effort? Or was everything always in his control? Yes, from the day Li Jintian pardoned him, everything went out of control. Everyone thought that he was living under the radar for self-preservation, but he was just deeply hidden. While everyone was playing around, he watched them, amused. Terrible, really terrible. Thinking of this, Gao Min's chest tightened. While the crowd was still amazed, Zhu Yunsheng continued to speak. Fifth Prince really is a manly man. His home taught him well. Your decision was very wise. Presumably, you should be the pride of your father. But if I worked hard to raise a son and he sacrificed me, I'd certainly break his 2 legs. Heartless, ungrateful thing, just like a beast. Li Juyan's face turned purple from his mocking. Gao Min's expression was also very embarrassed. Before he did feel pride for his son's order to kill, but as a father, knowing that his son resolutely abandoned him, how could he feel happy? The two were drowning in panic and felt confused in despair. They knew the Tianshan palace only had about a dozen guards. They feared that if they couldn't kill Shishijie today, as long as he rescued one or two of the courtiers, they will immediately be sentenced as traitors. Then the sixth prince would be able to lift the justice banner and order the soldiers to seize the imperial city. Although Gao Lang had made arrangements, those arrangements could only come through if the two people could successfully take over all the people in the temple. With these people as hostage, they could force the courtiers to forge an imperial edict that made fifth prince successfully inherit the throne. They could then spread the news out, label sixth prince as a traitor, and order his death. Where was the difficulty in besieging Yanxian Temple and a group of defenseless palace people? Gao Min had initially thought that it would be the easiest battle of his life, but he actually met the most terrible enemy of his life. Was Shishujio also such an unfathomable person in the last life? No wonder he could have the last laugh. Poor him and Li Jintian, they all thought that this person was just a beautiful glass vase. Gao Min paled. He didn't dare underestimate him again. He could only hope that his brother let Gao family's private soldiers in the palace as soon as possible. Just then, a tall silhouette appeared under the doorframe and slowly opened. How dare you abandon your father? Even if the whole world was placed in front of me, it couldn't compare to my concubine father. He came out of the black backlight, and everyone finally saw the bearer of the voice. A royal, extraordinary face, a bloodthirsty pair of eyes, and a cold temperament. This person was sixth prince, Li Shudong, back from the Southern Territories after 3 years. He was still very tender when he'd left, but now he had an aquiline nose and broad eyebrows, narrow-cut phoenix eyes, and thin lips. He looked mature and stable, a full 6 feet 3 inches. Not to mention his heavy armor was still dripping with blood. He had killed his way into the palace. His momentum was too strong, and made fifth prince look useless. Some of the courtiers had thought that if they could survive, they would pledge allegiance to fifth prince, not because they were threatened, but because they honestly thought that he was the best prince among the bunch. His family background was the most valuable. They didn't know what the emperor had to be smoking to despise him. But looking at sixth prince and fifth prince side by side, fifth prince was obviously shrinking into himself, his face panicked, while sixth prince completely ignored him. No wonder the emperor hid sixth prince in the south. No wonder he betrayed fifth prince to make sixth prince the new king. The reason was now clear. Anyone with eyes could see which one had the real prestige of an emperor. Behind him was many soldiers equally dressed in blood. They were different from the Tianshan palace guards. These people had indifferent expressions and cold eyes. They looked like the undead. They were soldiers who had experienced countless killings. They were trained to be cold and battle-ready. Gao family's private soldiers had been idle for 3 years. They'd lost their bloodthirst, so even they were not their opponents. Forget about the palace guards who were trapped in a comfy temple all day. Li Shudong ignored everyone else. He only stared greedily at his concubine father, especially at his lovely face. He'd stayed the same way he'd left him. No matter how much time passed, his eyebrows were still so proud. He was such a unique and important existence to him. Just like he said, even if you give him the whole world, he wouldn't exchange it for his father. The throne, power, or the country, none of it was worth a single hair on his father's head. Even if the whole world collapsed, as long as concubine father was still there, what did it matter to Li Shudong? He would have never left his side if he hadn't needed to ascend the throne to get him. Concubine father, I'm back. He eagerly ran over to hug him. Xuansheng threw away the half-dead Gao Min and grabbed the wolf cub into his arms, but was immediately shocked. The other man was too tall and too thick. His arms could no longer encircle him. Li Shudong chuckled. His deep eyes were pampering. He opened his concubine father's arms and pressed him into his chest. The strength of his big grip was amazing. While the father and son had their reunion, Fifth Prince and Gao Min were taken into the prison. The scared temple people all quickly knelt and shouted, "Long live!" All the Gao family who participated in the conspiracy were imprisoned. Gao Lang and the dozens involved in the rebellion were sentenced to death. The rest of the elderly women and children were demoted to commoners and forced to migrate thousands of miles. Li Shudong obviously didn't want to let Gao family off so easily. But Li Jintian really was too in love with Gao Min. He'd actually left a secret message that told Sixth Prince that whatever the outcome, leave Gao family a way out. Did he ever think of leaving concubine father's family a way out? Li Shudong was so angry that he decided to ignore the order. But Zhou Sheng felt that since Li Jintian wanted a good outcome for everyone, there was no need to change it. He was a foreign force. He couldn't wantonly kill the protagonist. Otherwise, it would cause the world to collapse. But using the protagonists to kill each other was a roundabout and interesting way to play around. Gao Min waited for 3 days to see if his son would be brought into the jail. His heart was very anxious. He paced in front of the prison door wistfully, and the person he was waiting for finally showed up. Qi Qiujie, Shuyan, what have you done with my son? Please, don't kill him. Isn't it enough that you killed him in the last life? All the wrongs were my doing. If you want to pay me back, come, eat me alive or peel my skin. I deserve it all, he shouted at the young man who was walking in slowly. Gao family didn't know about his rebirth. They thought he had gone crazy. Zhu Sheng went to the front of his cell and looked at him condescendingly for a long time. Then he lowered his voice so only they could hear. In the last life, your son's death was not only from Shishujie's hand. There was also Jin Imperial concubine Yao Shiyun and your personal servant. He was bought by Shishujie a long time ago. When you died in your last life, didn't you think he was killed by the rebellion army? No, he hid in the Xishan palace to avoid the attack and also became Shishujie's confidant. Gao Min was transfixed. He didn't expect his own servant had betrayed him, especially since they had grown up together. Shui Sheng smiled. Even after being reborn, you still don't know how to read people. Gao Min, it's not an injustice that you lost, but Shishujie really does owe Li Xuyan alive. So I didn't kill him. He's now in the royal palace with Prince Li, and judging by how he treats you, Prince Li will love him as his own son. Gao Min lost his strength in his body and collapsed on the ground, relieved. He really couldn't understand Shishujie. He seemed brutal, but he acted by his own rules. It's no wonder he and Li Jintian lost to this man. No matter what, that's wrong. Their failure was their own fault. If they weren't so greedy, doubtful, and suspicious, they would have never fallen to this point. Their conversation was very soft. The rest of the family was curious to death, but didn't dare get too close. Zuyun Sheng straightened up and hooked in his finger. The execution is tomorrow, so I'll give you some broken rice. Eat up. His voice faded, and a guard stepped up to place a food box in the prison. Zuyun Sheng kicked it over and grinded it with the sole of his shoe. Gao Lang's chains almost cracked. He was desperately struggling to reach over and tear him up. Zuyun Sheng continued, If you eat it, I'll change the execution to decapitation to give you a happy death. Gao Lang didn't move, so Zhu Yunsheng sneered. Otherwise, you get death by cuts. The rest of the sentenced Gao family were kneeling over, promising to eat. 300,600 knife cuts, each cut biting into the bone marrow, so you'll suffer for hours before you die. This kind of sinful death, who was willing to suffer it? Zhu Sheng was clearly amusing himself with Gao Long. Seeing him not moving to eat, it gave him a cheerful smile, and he slowly walked away. Such a manly man. To tell you the truth, even if you all eat, I would still hold you in account and make you pay it back. Gao family had hundreds of people. How could they be offset by a mouthful of rice? That was way too easy. Gao Lang clenched his teeth. He was almost not even angry. He just deeply felt that Shi Shiji's mind was terrible. He seemed to see everything in the world as a game to master. He wantonly played around with everyone else. If he had known he was like this, he wouldn't have made him his enemy.